So today we've got a bit of a rushed video. It's a bit of a mess. I started recording this and the call then interrupted, so then I've kind of brought him into the video as well. There's no kind of structure to this, but we cover a lot of ground anyway. It's James Bond Day, Global James Bond Day today, and we've covered a bit of the recent things and some of the things we think maybe where the franchise is going, and talking about some merchandise and stuff as well. So do watch it, but like I said, just be warned, we do kind of go off into other areas here, and the core has a bit of a rant about some of the culture war stuff that's kind of infected the James Bond books anyway, at least. So I would have preferred to have had more of an upbeat video really, but unfortunately that's the state of things. But we do end it on a positive note, so maybe bear with us. Feel free to skip some of this if some of the kind of conversation they're having isn't really up your street. Towards the end of the video we have a bit more of a laugh, so something in it for everybody anyway with this video. So I hope you enjoy, and yeah, here it is.
Game face on when I chase like that, yeah, I play so strong with a knife in the back. I'ma swing home run like a baseball bat. Gonna see me rise, you can hate on that. I don't play both sides, doing me no cap. I'ma ride or die for my dreams on tap. I'ma fly real high, you ain't see me stack. No, it's not how you thought, so you get.
Well, hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews. Just a quick video because today is Global James Bond Day. And I've done videos on previous years on this date. So for context, today is the 5th of October 2023. And it was on this date in 1962 that Dr. No got its original release. Hence, this date got picked, October the 5th. So I was going to do this video with my co-review of the core, but I guess he's working 3 weeks on Sunday, so he couldn't do this video tonight. So what a shame. In fact, actually, the core might be joining us. Let's just see if I can get him on this. Bear with me 1 second. So here is the core. I had actually started recording a video and you interrupted it, so you're now contractually obliged to take part in the video. That's how that works.
And then you get really upset because I don't add enough value to the...
Yeah. No, well, we're doing 2 videos anyway, so I'm recording now, obviously. We're doing 2 videos, and the one that we're going to do, because I was actually wrong, the 10th anniversary of the channel is actually not the 6th, it's the 9th, so that's Monday. Today, however, is Global James Bond Day, which, as I was saying when I started the video, October the 5th, that's when Dr. No got released back in 1962. So every year it's Global James Bond Day on this date, and we have done videos. You might not even remember. I think you were part of at least one of them. We don't do it every year, but I try to if I can. So now we have the core.
Yes.
So some of the things we were going to mention is just going to be a real quick one anyway, basically. Obviously, past year, looking back, we've had a few things. We've had some stuff that kind of sucks, and it's been with regards to the books, really. We had the Ian Fleming re-releases of the books with the sensitivity reader nonsense, which we've seen with other work, whether it's Agatha Christie or Roald Dahl. Had their books kind of chopped up a little bit, and you can say, oh, it's just a few little touch-ups here and there, but it sucks that this is being done in, obviously, in the context of the whole new ruling class. They are the downtrodden. We're not allowed to criticise them. Well, hang on, how can they be downtrodden if you want to look to who rules over you, look to whom you're not allowed to criticise? It's one of them things anyway. I won't get too much into that, but it just stinks of that, basically. So yeah. I don't know. Have we talked about this previously on the channel? I don't think we have. We don't have to get into it now because it's not really the point of this video, but
I don't know. It's always the cringiest thing imaginable when you get some fucking college dropout or I've been to university and got a degree in bollocks all, ranting on about oh, they had the wrong opinions, and see here, back in the 60s he said this, and how disgusting is that, and here in the 40s he said this. It's disgusting. And it's well, his books are still fucking remembered now, and they're going to be remembered long after you are fucking gone. So, enjoy your 5 minutes of fame, I guess, shithead.
Yeah. So
It's not just that as well. I mean, that's the Ian Fleming books. Obviously, there have been other authors that have kind of picked
Oh,
up the
I'm
James
talking about
Bond.
roll fucking Dahl with that. Like, oh, he
Yeah.
said this, and he didn't have the best opinion of women, and he did this, and he might have been that. And it's like, well, yeah, it's great, like attacking a guy who's basically fucking dead and can't defend himself. And then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, the Roald Dahl family should do better. It's like, oh, go fuck yourself, seriously.
Yeah.
Here's an
So,
idea. Why don't you produce something of lasting worth rather than trying to drag down somebody else's work?
yeah, no, it's all good. I agree with you.
It's the same with
Um,
H.P. Lovecraft and stuff. It's like, yeah, guy had a lot of very toxic opinions. Guy was also a little bit crazy and died miserable and young and pretty much unheard of. What else do you fucking want? Shall we dig him
yeah.
up, piss on him as well? Is that going to make you happy? Like, what do you want exactly?
Yeah, so for context, it's all kind of in the backdrop of all that. I mean, you might have gone off topic a little bit there, but I think it is relevant because the point I was making, you've made it for me. It ties in with all that garbage. So we don't want James Bond to be infected with all that. But unfortunately, this year it was. There was also the Charlie Higson book as well. There was a new one that got released this year, I believe, and it was full of just woke ideology and Brexit voters are bad, and James Bond has to go after them all, and really horrible, toxic culture war garbage, total propaganda. So from the point of view of the books, this last year hasn't been great. But on a positive note, we've had a few little things here and there in terms of merchandise. We've had some good re-releases of things. I haven't actually covered this, but this year I got this. I mean, there have been releases of this before, various different versions. The Golden Gun from the man with the golden gun. I don't know which side this is going to show up on when I when I have it on, because it's going to be a split screen, I think. Potentially depends how Skype works this, but yeah, the Golden Gun replica. Now this is a cheaper one. This isn't the one that cost hundreds of pounds when it came out and has now gone up to like thousands of pounds if you try to buy one. This is the very basic one that doesn't dismantle, but it is very nice. And I bought this earlier this year. I had it on pre-order, and it comes on this very nice stand as well. It's got the man with the golden gun on there as well, and this is from Factory Entertainment as well.
But does it also come with like a third nipple so you can like properly?
Yeah. So some of the detail is quite nice. It's got some imperfections to it when you look at it. I mean, you kind of get what you pay for with this. It was less than £100, I seem to remember. I think it was like £80 or £90 when I bought it. And I got it from the 007 store. Which was very nice as well. I've bought quite a few things from them in the past and reviewed them, but it doesn't have any moving parts. It's all one thing, but it just looks very nice in like a glass unit. So that was that. But
Well, when you're talking about stuff that like disassembles and stuff, that sounds really cool. And if I had like shit tons of money, I might get something like that. But I think for somebody who's like got a bit more of a, I mean, it's not like you're gonna be taking it apart and playing with it all the time. I think what you
yeah,
got there is like more than sufficient.
yeah, absolutely. That's a kind of positive way of looking at it. You can, if you're really desperate, you could get a 3D printed version. There's plenty of unofficial ones out there. They're not obviously as nice and shiny as that because they're made of plastic, basically, or resin. All total for jokes about resin aside. And they do dismantle and kind of come apart. Quite impressive, actually. I was tempted to get one of those originally, but I thought, no, I'd rather have that because it's just going to end up in a glass cabinet, whether it's dismantleable or not. So, like you say, it doesn't really matter when it looks nice like that. But in terms of other stuff, future projects, movies, obviously, don't hold your breath, basically. And I think that's a good thing because this moment in time that we're at in terms of entertainment, which we're going to get into in the next video on Monday, we're going to talk about obviously how the movie arena and the commentary arena on those movies, current movies, isn't in the best place as it maybe was 10 years ago. I don't think James Bond as a franchise, unless they're going to kind of just stay out of it, just make a point of staying out of the culture wars, which I don't think they would do if they do release any movies. Unless they did that, I think they just need to leave it for a decade or so. I mean, who knows where things are going to be in a decade. But at this current moment in time, I mean, I'm surprised that No Time to Die managed to escape having to, push the message and the ESG agenda. We got a pretty decent film. I mean, you can say, well, it is a little bit woke in that it kind of pedestalizes the sort of female characters. I would kind of disagree with that. I'm not saying that. I don't really agree with it. I can see where you're coming from. You can make a case, but I think
That's the problem, though. I'd actually say, like, don't make the case, because it kind of makes you look a bit crazy. And when just a normie can look at it and go, well, you're talking shit, though. It's like anything else you then say to them from that point on, they're going to be like, well, you were talking shit before, so I'm pretty sure you're talking shit now.
Yeah.
It's like there are so many, like, examples out there that are, like, heavily, like, fucking like that.
Yeah.
It's like, say, there's sometimes I watch things and I have to, like, physically step back a minute and go, like, well, okay, I'm a bit pissed off by this stuff, but, like, if this had come out, like, a couple of decades ago, would this have even been on my radar? Like, no, it wouldn't.
Exactly. It's like the latest film obviously has a lot of themes to it. I mean, I know you haven't seen it yet. You're probably not too fussed. But obviously, if you're aware of the film, you've seen it. It focuses a lot on the female characters and their importance. I wouldn't say it's their importance because they're female. I would say it's their importance because James Bond is a heterosexual male and he falls in love with a woman, which also happened in the books, also happened in the movies in the 60s with On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And obviously it ties in a lot with that. I don't think that they were doing it because, women are awesome, that whole message, the message, because they just are. I think it was because it was in keeping with the character. So, I think that last movie I think was good. But point is, anyway, future movies, there is a concern because Barbara Broccoli has been making some, she's the rights holder, basically. She's been making some very questionable decisions with regards to certain of the things with James Bond. And some fairly concerning comments about reinvention, which you could say, and I would say, is kind of like, well, that's a given anyway whenever you recast. But you could also read into it, there's a concern there that given some of the other things with her, with sort of let's tone it down kind of thing, could be pushing the franchise in not such a good place if they do any future movies anytime soon. Case in point, for example, there was a new a suitcase came out, a replica of the toy that you could get in this, I think the 60s, and it wasn't the suitcase from Russia with Love, but it had enough of the things in it. You got the gold sovereigns and so on and so forth with it, and it was a toy for children. It's not a full replica of the one seen in the movie, but it was close enough, and it was like a re-release of that. And Barbara Broccoli had apparently made the decision that the gun that you got with that is not to have a gun. It's like, seriously, that was like the main thing that you got with it, and instead you get a camera or something, which kind of sucks, really. And it annoyed a lot of people. And it's like, well, so basically, you're dismantling James Bond. That's not a good. It's not a good thing, really. It's not a good sign. So, and
I don't see it as hugely likely that it's going to keep going for much longer, because it is just like box office fucking poison. Like, whenever they start with this shit.
The work thing. You mean the work thing, not James?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, woke and ESG in general. It's like, it is just a massive fucking money pit. And you've got the other thing that succeeded recently that you could argue is like Barbie, and even then that was like a very like toned down dose of it.
Yeah, and they seem to have some actual like entertainment value to that, even if it's not my or your cup of tea. But yeah, so beyond that, what else is it to say? We've got some questions from Paul Cage, by the way, so let's kind kind of change the channel a little bit, have a bit of fun with this. So, yeah. So Paul was asking, in no order, what are your top 3 fantasy castings for future Bonds? Feel free to expand on answers or just state the actors. Any that you could think?
So,
I think he would be very good. Yeah, yeah. Obviously, there's is Aaron Taylor Johnson has been talked about quite a lot. I think he would be quite good. He's not too well known, and he's about the right age, and he looks the part, and he's a good actor, and he's British, and he can handle himself. I think he'd do a good job, to be honest. Obviously, people talk about Henry Cavill. He's too old to, because he might be an okay age now, like passable, but they have to have longevity. They have to be able to stay in the role for another 10 years or so. And I just don't see that being the case with somebody who's, 40 plus. I think they need to be a bit younger.
Plus, I really like Henry Cavill. Like, he's comes across as like a pretty sound guy, like in interviews and stuff. But at the same time, it's like he's not really had any massive successes either. He's not beyond like Nerd Culture. He's not that bankable.
Yeah, I'd like
Like,
to see
I
the
mean,
film.
yeah, The Witcher was like big, but that was TV big, not like movie big. And like the DCU was like an absolute steaming shitstorm. Like, that wasn't his fault, but
Yeah.
I mean, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was actually pretty good, but like
I
it
need
did
to watch that.
shit.
Yeah, I need to watch that. It's supposed to be good. I've got it on Blu-ray actually. I got it for like £2. I need to give that a watch.
I think the guy who played not the guy who played Ilya Kuryakin in the film, but like the original guy, like passed this year or like fairly recently.
Oh yeah, Patrick. I can't remember his name now. Yeah, I know what you mean though.
Yeah, he's been in a few things. He's also been in like NCIS and stuff. But yeah, I saw recently he'd passed, and I was like, shit.
Yeah.
Not really surprising because he was really fucking old at this point. But yeah, it is kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, an aside. Let's get back to the topic.
Yeah. So that'd be 2 for me. I can't really think of any others, to be fair. I think that's the point. I think I'd rather go with somebody that's unknown. So
Robbie Williams, he'd be really good at it. Idris Elba. Let's get the controversial choices out.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I would have liked to see Idris Elba just because I really like Idris Elba, not because of like. I mean, obviously we're kind of outing the whole work thing, but I think that doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think Idris Elba just because he's so awesome and ticks all the right boxes, for the most part. I mean, he might not look that way because of skin color, but obviously he's got enough going for him and enough strong points going for him. I think it would override any kind of like weirdness like that. It'd be like having somebody very young or somebody very old playing it.
I mean, it's also one of those things where, in some ways, I wouldn't really mind if they just did like a completely like not exactly completely unknown, but certainly somebody you don't know as much about, like rather than going for like a big name, like
I think that would be my fantasy casting, just somebody that we don't know that's really good. Basically, it sounds like a cop out, but I don't really want to see like somebody that I associate with other things as James Bond. Moving on anyway.
Just doing something different, like when you're saying like, "I'll go for somebody really old," like maybe that wouldn't be such a stupid idea, especially if you wanted to tell those stories where, like, he's got started back in the Cold War and he's still around, and he's a fossil and nobody, kind of the sort of stuff they did, but actually go like all in on that, like. Oh, he's a relic of the past, but ultimately, like, he's what you fucking need to get shit done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the next question, anyway, is a fairly simple one, but it's an interesting one. Which Bond actor would you most like to see in another Bond actor's film? Go nuts with this one for fun. For example, Roger Moore in Daniel Craig's Casino Royale. The rest of the cast stays the same. That's a good question, that. That's one of the best questions Paul's ever sent, I think. And I know the answer to that as well.
I mean, go ahead, because I don't have a good answer to that one. I'm not as much of a Bond fanatic, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's some obvious ones, like obviously Pierce Brosnan was supposed to be in The Living Daylights, and it'd be interesting to know like how that would have been, because he came very close to being in that one. Obviously, eventually was in GoldenEye. You could equally say Timothy Dalton in GoldenEye if he'd have stayed on as Bond. But I think I would rather see Timothy Dalton in The Living Daylights and Pierce Brosnan in Goldeneye. I don't think I would want to swap those two around. But what I would say, which I think would have been an improvement, not because George Lazenby's better than Sean Connery, but I would have liked to have seen George Lazenby stay on in Diamonds Are Forever, because there's a bit of a. I mean, I love the film Diamonds Are Forever, don't get me wrong, but there's a bit of a thing where you've gone from On Her Majesty's Secret Service to real silly, like 70s silliness with a very kind of bored Sean Connery in the role, who was just doing it for like charity, basically, from what I understand, which, fair enough. But at this point, he wasn't wanting to play James Bond. They just threw enough money at him, so he did it. If George Lazenby had stayed on and they'd have kept continuity in the tone of the last film, I think it would have been good, and we'd have less of the anomaly of the George Lazenby thing. I mean, I know he was like the least good actor for Bond, but I think it would have been good to see that. As a fan of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I think it would have been good if they'd have kept on with that. That would be my answer to that anyway. So there's another question. I'll try to blitz these because we're running out of time. What direction do you think they will take future Bonds? Another reboot, set back in time, follow the books again, perhaps keep present day setting and again expand however you want with this. Could do another video for that at some point in the future, to be fair. But for now, I think there's been talks about Christopher Nolan coming on and doing just that, doing like period Bond movies. So like basically remaking the films based on the original books. I don't see him doing that in movies, maybe, and not with Christopher Nolan, but maybe they would do that as like a TV thing, because I think Amazon have got their like claws into the Bond thing, and I don't see why not. Because I mean, I'd rather see movies, but if they're not going to do anything, as a Bond fan, as someone who likes, I mean, they are based on books, so I don't mind if they do a TV series, as long as it's not woke, basically. We've seen that with Jack Reacher, for example, and Jack Ryan, is it? Something about
Yeah, I mean the Jack Reacher like series that was based on like the first of those books is actually pretty good, and it is like different enough to. I mean, nothing wrong with like the films, but he wasn't really like the character. Like he's basically described as basically being like a brick shit house. He's like massive,
that. Yeah.
like full on like who are Marine kind of thing. Like he looks like he could fucking break you over his knee. Well, like Tom Cruise is awesome, but that's not really what he is. He's more charming.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll have to cut it short, but one last question, and I know the answer to this. If Bond could do a film universe crossover with any other franchise to either take on a villain or work together with someone, which franchise would it be? My pick would be Jason Bourne because it's like a no-brainer. What would you think?
Again, I don't think I'm enough of a fan to really have much of a thinking on this.
Yeah, you could say that maybe Mission Impossible, possibly, but yeah, I think Jason Bourne. It's one of those things, isn't it? People used to say, like maybe crossover, like Roger Moore's The Saint with Roger Moore's James Bond.
You
But
see,
yeah,
I'd see something a bit more like that, or like like the really original Bonds with like Man from U.N.C.L.E. or something like it's the same sort of
yeah,
time period. Like I could sort of see that a crossover between like Bond and Bourne, but at the same time, it's like the two such different worlds. Like I couldn't see them coexisting in the same world. If you get me.
yeah.
Like I
Another
couldn't
good
see a
one.
world in which Bourne's getting shot full of drugs and sent out on assassination missions, but we've also got Spectre, planning to blow up the world, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well,
know
one.
that's a bit unfair, but you kind of get what I mean.
Yeah. I think one that would be interesting, and it would be very confusing, would be if they crossed over the 60s James Bond with the Avengers TV series, not Marvel Avengers, obviously, but the John Steed, Emma Peel thing. The reason why it wouldn't really work was it would be like, John Steed, or is it Tibbet? no, it's not Tibbet. It's the same actor, and then it's like, oh, Emma Peel. Hang on, that's Teresa. That's Teresa Di Vicenza, the one they got married to. There's like so many
Everything
like
is very confusing.
yeah. The only way it would work if maybe they threw it in the Linda Thorson series, but then there'd still be loads like small. Every episode of the Avengers you watch, there's always somebody that's been in a James Bond film. But anyway, that's it for the James Bond stuff. Anyway, so it's been a bit of a mess of a video, but I think we've covered a lot of ground. So
Yeah.
well, cut it short there. We're going to do a video coming out on Monday. We're going to talk about because it's the 10th anniversary of the channel on Monday, the 9th of October. We're going to talk about 2013, that whole era for movies that were coming out at the time and how awesome it was, to the anticipation and the YouTube review space and how it was awesome and how it kind of declined. But we'll try to keep it positive anyway. So yeah, we'll come back for that then.